He might be in the United Kingdom, but today Donald Trump was the host. The Prime Minister's convoy making its way up the Turnberry Drive to the sound of a piper laid on by this Scotland-loving president who, as you can just about hear, was particularly charmed to welcome Lady Starmer.
I don't know what he's doing, but she's very respected. As respected as him. I don't want to say more, I'll get myself in trouble.
But even before they went inside, it was clear that Gaza would be high on the agenda.
People in Britain are revolted at seeing what they're seeing on their screens, so we've got to get to that ceasefire, and thank you, Mr. President, for leading on that.
Mr. President, do you think Israel has done all it can do to avoid civilian casualties in Gaza?
Well, I think nobody's done anything great over there. The whole place is a mess. It'll get straightened out, but it's a mess. They have to get food, and meantime, food and safety right now.
After the two leaders shared a private lunch, we were ushered into the Donald Trump ballroom, where it was quickly clear that the president did not agree with Israeli claims that there is no starvation in Gaza.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it, and you can't fake that.
The president also hardened his line on Ukraine with a dramatic shortening of his deadline for a Russian ceasefire.
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. We just don't see any progress being made.
We can all sense your frustration with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Do you think he has been lying to you about his intentions in Ukraine?
Well, I don't want to use the word lying. All I know is we'd have a good talk, and it seemed on, let's say, 3 occasions, it seemed that we were going to have a ceasefire and maybe peace, and you divide it up and you do whatever you have to do, that obviously, to get to the end. And all of a sudden, missiles are flying into Kiev. You know, this has happened on too many occasions, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Although the Prime Minister has forged a surprisingly warm relationship with the President, there were occasional differences on show today on wind turbines.
Wind is a disaster. It's a very ugly energy, and we won't allow it in the United States.
So we believe in a mix, and obviously oil and gas is going to be with us for a very long time.
And on the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan.
I think he's done a terrible job, the Mayor of London, but a nasty person. I think he's done. I think
he's a friend of mine.
No, I think he's done a terrible job.
But they sidestepped other potential disagreements on free speech and taxes, and the overall tone was pretty glowing.
Look, you know, we have a very special relationship with this country. Like, you know, my mother was born here, and not only born here, loved it. She'd come back, I tell you, religiously every year.
The Prime Minister even got a lift on board Air Force One to dinner in Aberdeen tonight. Whatever Britain may think about Trump, Trump remains very fond of Britain, and Keir Starmer has leveraged that, whilst just about staying on the right side of the president. Carl Dinnan News at 10, Turnberry.
It was already a sign of President Trump's growing impatience with Russia's war on Ukraine when, a while back, he gave Vladimir Putin 50 days to come up with a ceasefire plan, a far cry from the chummy bonhomie which characterized his previous accounts of interacting with the Russian leader. Now he's gone even further. He's massively shortened the ceasefire deadline to around 10 to 12 days. In other words, the end of next week.
There was little sign of Russian compromise today from this new video released by the Kremlin. President Putin appeared to be flexing his propaganda muscles with fresh combat footage, even as President Trump issued a tighter ultimatum for a deal over Ukraine.
I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number.
Donald Trump's attitude towards Russia has evolved.
I will get it settled before I even become president.
From talking about how his close relationship with Vladimir Putin could end the war,
I would get a settlement in 24 hours.
To issuing deadlines, which now are getting tighter and tighter.
We're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days.
Today, President Zelensky was visiting some of the most vulnerable victims of this conflict. During his nightly address, he praised what he said was Donald Trump's expressed determination to end the war.
They're emboldened, they're pleased, their morale has skyrocketed.
Former US Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, has spoken to sources across Ukraine today who are bolstered by Trump's harder attitude to Russia.
I have good friends on the front line. They tell me that as soon as that message came out, even when it was 50 days, they thought it was too long, but nonetheless, the 50 days and the weapons. When they saw that change, the morale on the front line skyrocketed, and the morale among the Ukrainians. I mean, they've been fighting for 3.5 years.
While Donald Trump's policy on Russia appears to be getting tougher, Vladimir Putin's position has never really changed. He's always wanted to either conquer Ukraine or turn it into a vassal state. But now he's facing the prospect of punitive new sanctions, not only on Russia, but on any of its trading partners. Tonight, as Ukrainians remembered those who'd sacrificed everything in this fight for freedom, there is a glimmer of hope that perhaps the fate of Ukraine is now looking less bleak. The scales perhaps finally falling from President Trump's eyes as he sees what Putin is doing to an entire generation. Dan Rivers, News at 10, Washington.
And Carl joins us now. Carl, I mean, it is remarkable if you compare Donald Trump's attitude to, say, Russia and Europe at the beginning of his presidency or before he took office to now. It seems very different. Do you think Keir Starmer deserves some credit for that? What do you make of the bonhomie between the two?
Well, it's always surprising to see just how well these two get on. I mean, sure, there were some pretty excruciating moments during that hour-long press conference today, but nowhere near as many as I think there could have been. Donald Trump was going out of his way to avoid disagreement with Keir Starmer at times today. Now, the Prime Minister didn't get everything he wanted. We haven't mentioned steel tariffs, for example. We don't know when those are going to come down. We don't know whether Britain will be kept out of the pharmaceutical tariffs whenever Donald Trump announces those. But on those big foreign policy issues, like Ukraine that we've just been talking about, President Trump is a lot closer to the European position now. I don't think that is entirely down to the meeting today. He was heading in that direction anyway, and I think it also has quite a bit to do with the way President Putin has behaved. On Gaza, though, the Prime Minister and the President, I'm told, spent most of their meeting talking about Gaza. The Prime Minister presented some ideas for the European and certainly the British plan for a pathway to peace. Again, the President seems closer to the European view of at least the humanitarian situation in Gaza than to the Israeli view. Although I think when it comes to things like the recognition of Palestine, the Americans are still some distance away from the direction the British government is heading in.